What's up guys, this is Philip Pong, first year medical student, still riding early in the morning right now, but we have something new to show you guys. In this video, we're going to be interviewing medical students about some MCAT processes, any advice and tips that they can give you guys on, so that'll be exciting. So stay tuned for that and we'll fill you guys with all the information you guys need.
Hey guys, I'm Neydric. We're back again talking about MCAT today. So once again, I'm a first year here at UF and I'm here with my friend Hansol. She's also a first year.
Hi, I'm Hansol. I'm a first year medical student at UF.
So we're going to be discussing a few MCAT topics today, ranging from how the MCAT is to how to study for it, and we're really excited.
So what's on the MCAT?
So the MCAT is made up of 4 sections. There's a chemical and physical foundations of biological systems section. There's a psych-soc section. There's a biochemistry and biology section, and there's a CAR section. CAR stands for critical assessment and reasoning skills. So you have about 60 questions in each section, and the test is about 7.5 hours long, including break. So that's something you need to work on your endurance with. Yeah, just plan it out. You need to really focus. And the questions are passage-based. So it's a little different from undergrad to where you're getting the information and they're presenting it to you in a multiple choice format. You have to pretty much find the answer. You can know the content, but you need to find the answer within the passage. So it's different from what you've been taking. So I suggest a lot of practice test before you take it. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. A lot of practice. It's definitely helpful.
Definitely. It can be a doozy, but you can get through it. So you take the MCAT when you're ready. It's not something you rush. You don't want anybody pressuring you to take the MCAT when you're not ready, including yourself. You don't want to take it if you haven't really studied for it or you haven't studied long enough for it. And you can't be afraid to take a gap year. So if it's junior or senior year and you're still not ready for your MCAT, you haven't taken the necessary classes, maybe hold off on it because all the schools can see every MCAT attempt you've ever taken. So that means if you do better at the second time in an MCAT, the first time doesn't go away. It just shows the improvement. So I would suggest trying to get the best score you can the first time at least.
Another thing to consider is when you're going to be applying. And so when I applied, the application cycle opened in June, which it will for you as well. And so I thought through like at what point would I want my score out, and so I took it in the fall so that I would have my score in the fall so that I could use the spring to get my letters and write my essays and prepare for the application cycle. But there's definitely a spectrum of like dates that work because I took mine in September, but you took yours in
April.
April. I know a lot of people took it in January, and it all gets us in the same place. And so.
Right. So you definitely want to keep an eye out for the application cycle when that starts as well. So plan ahead. Nothing's set in stone. You can change dates if something comes up, but you really want to stick to a date so you can have your application ready in time. But definitely take it when you're ready. That's the gist of it.
How long do you study for the MCAT?
So usually you want to study however long you think is enough. Some people study for a month, but some people study for a year. Personally, I study for about 4 months, which I would say is average, just to get the content. But it's more about how you schedule your time. If you're studying for a year, but you're only studying once a week, it might not be as efficient. But if you're really, really hankering down and just studying every day, well, 6 days out of the week, for like 3 or 4 hours a day, then I think you're going to be in good shape if you just study for a few months. How did you study?
So I think this is a hard question just because like how much is appropriate to study varies depending on who we are. And so for a lot of people, I know that like a lot of people take it while they're in school or they have jobs, and so they have a lot of other things going on. When I took the MCAT, I took it a year after I'd graduated from undergrad, and I had the summer off, and so I took 2 months to study for it in the summer. But it was like full days worth of dedicated time studying, and so I didn't have other classes going on. It was also after I'd taken like most of the prerequisite classes, and so I had that background, and so because of that it took 2 months, but I think it really varies.
It really does. But when you're studying for the MCAT, it's something you kind of need to put up on your priority list. It's not something you need to put necessarily at the top, depending on your lifestyle, but it is, you kind of do need to sacrifice some stuff, some time. And that's the biggest thing. Just finding your schedule, and whatever works for you is probably gonna be the best choice. So I like Kaplan. Kaplan was really good. Some of the sections in the Psych Soc, in my opinion, were a little bit lacking. So supplementary materials like TPR, or the Princeton Review, or Khan Academy, or exam crackers for Psych Soc might be a little bit better. But with biology, chemistry, it's very organized, very structured, and it's just really, they make you understand the material, is what I'm trying to get at. But there's tons of other great ones. I don't think you can go wrong with any set of books, to be honest with you. They all have the same material. They just explain it in a different way. And yeah, I mean, it's really how you study rather than what the books can teach you, whether you can comprehend it or not, or study efficiently.
I also use Kaplan, but I also think a lot of other books and resources would also have been helpful as well, just because like the test, the creators of all of these different, like Princeton Review and Kaplan and Exam Cracker, they all like know what they're doing, and they dedicate their time towards creating these resources, and so there's a lot of great resources out there. Yeah, I think what you mentioned just about committing to the study plan, no matter which company it is really more important than which one you choose.
Should I take a study course?
So a study course it can be very helpful, but you have to kind of know yourself. You have to know how you learn. Personally, I didn't take a study course, and I did fine on the MCAT. So it's not something I want you to think that you need to take, but it can be helpful if you're that type of learner that learns by someone teaching it to you directly in a classroom style, lecture hall style, someone talking at you, auditory learning. So it can help with that. But self-study is how most people end up spending the majority of their content review. But like I said, it really depends on who you are.
I also I didn't take an MCAT prep course, but I did teach for it for a year and a half, and I think the benefit of a class is that if you just want additional support, figuring out like a structure in terms of like how to study, and you want more like in-person encouragement or support, I think classes are a good resource. And no matter what, for the people who did well in the classes, it's always because they were studying outside of class, and so just having an MCAT prep course is like not gonna get us there. It's really about what we're doing outside of class, and so it's just that additional structure and support that might be helpful.
What was your study schedule like?
So personally, I did 6 days a week. There's Kaplan has it set up to where it's a 7-book review. So basically I would do 1 book each day, with Wednesdays being 2 books, organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry. And then I took Sundays off because I like to go to church and just relax. And I think that's really important. You shouldn't study 7 days a week. Just try to aim for 5 or 6 in my opinion, and spread that material out. If you know you have if you know you have a big chapter ahead on Thursday, then maybe you want to just do 2 chapters on Tuesday in the preparation for that, so you have more time on Thursday for that one big chapter. Preview material just to get it organized, see what you're in for, and yeah, just try to meet your goals. Set goals for yourself and follow through. It's the biggest thing.
I studied for it in 2 months, and I structured it so that every day, I pretty much studied 6 to 7 days a week, but I was only studying like maybe 8 to 10 hours each day, and I would spend the mornings like going through the books and making flashcards, and then some of the evenings like going through the flashcards, and then towards the end of my study I incorporated a lot more like practice and then test reviews and flashcards, and that was pretty much my study schedule. I think since I did it in the summer and I had more time, it was cool because I got to do other things with my time, like go to the beach and have fun. And I went to like a service trip in the middle of it. That was a week-long trip. But yeah, I think it was actually a fun period of studying, and so the MCAT doesn't have to be a painful like process. There are ways to make it more enjoyable.
Definitely, and just to add on to that, do something nice for yourself every week, because the MCAT is studying for the MCAT is very, very time consuming and emotionally, mentally, and physically waning on you. So it's important to have that work-life balance as well, even if you're studying for the MCAT. And that goes on throughout medical school. Wellness is really, really big in medical school. Residency, you really want to take care of yourself because people do end up getting burnt out, and you don't want that to happen, especially so early on in your career.
Sounds like something we should talk about in the future.
Definitely, that's another video. Keep an eye out.
What are some specific tips you have on studying for and taking the MCAT?
So we talked about a lot of stuff already. Specifically, I would say pace yourself. Know what you're in for. But I think the biggest thing would be to take practice tests early on. The MCAT is a totally different beast from any undergrad test that you took. It's not your biochemistry course. It's not your orgo course. It's a different test. When I say passage-based, I don't want you to think it's like the SAT. It's not the SAT. It's like the SAT on like steroids. Like it's not. And it's different information too. So I would say just know how the test is like, get a taste of it in the beginning, do your content review, and then periodically do exam questions. So maybe by the end of the week, when you did your whole set of chapters for that week, you can do a whole bunch of practice problems, or just do a set number of passages. That's for the first 3 sections. For cars, it's different. Cars, you really want to practice as much as you can, just because cars is not something that you can learn how to do. You just have to do it and then get better as time progresses. So I would suggest doing cars at least 5 times a week. So don't just save it for the end of the week. Try to do it as often as you can, because cars it's a difficult section. Yeah, it's really hard to score high on cars.
This is advice, right?
Yeah, specific tips.
Okay. I have 3 general tips, and the first one is learn how to say no. And this is just prioritizing and time management, in that like there's a lot of great things competing for our time, and the MCAT is at some point going to be an important priority for you, just because if you're applying to med school, the MCAT is an important thing to have. And so just learn how to say no to your other like commitments in life at that time, or just other things that come up. Like it's not to say that like going out every night is a bad thing. It's just that like during seasons, like we have to say no to certain commitments at different times. And that even applies to things like research and volunteering, just because the MCAT is a short period of time that we're studying, and like if we want to do well in that, we have to just say no to other things. Another piece of advice is I don't remember it. Okay, so I'll just go to the third piece of advice. And this is the idea of, do I have to do something or do I get to do something? And I like to think about that as I'm in med school now even. It's the fact that I get to be here as a student. I get to take tests. Down the road, I get to take care of patients. But I think in the same way, when we think about the MCAT as this test, like we can think about it as like I have to take this test, or we can think about it as I get to take this test. And I think that really just changes the framework of how we approach the exam, because the whole like medical school education journey is a privilege, and the MCAT is just one part of that. And so if we just approach it from that perspective, it becomes a lot more of an enjoyable experience.
Definitely agree with you.
I wanted to just throw out there is to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. We very much know that our mental health, our brain is very much connected to the rest of our body. The same signals that flow around in the rest of our body is connected to our brain, that helps us think, and it's related to our emotional and physical and spiritual health. And we're gonna know that as physicians, and we should know that now as we're studying. And so just given that knowledge, we just want to do the best we can to take care of ourselves. And so if that means exercising a couple times a week, like yes, we should exercise. If that means taking time to spiritually center yourself or hang out with certain people who like give you life, like that's also really important. So just making sure that not only are we studying, but we're taking care of ourselves so that our studying will actually be more efficient.
So the MCAT is actually scored on a scale from 472 to 528, with the mean being 500 and a competitive score being above 509, and obviously a perfect score being a 528. And I haven't met anybody with a perfect score yet, but I don't know, maybe in the future. So it's something that you might not get the score that you want initially on your first practice test, but I didn't score well on my first practice test. I think I got like a 492 on my first practice test, and I kind of just took a picture of that and just hung it up on my wall to use it as a motivator. Really just try to improve. You try to get a little bit better with your practice test as you go on, and then people tend to score their highest score on the actual test. So you can get the highest score you can get on a practice test would be 510, for example, and then you end up getting a 514 on a test. So generally people are pleasantly surprised when they get their scores back. And you get your scores back in about a month after you take the MCAT, I think. Yeah, it's not immediate, definitely. It takes a while to get it back.
What about retaking the MCAT?
So retaking the MCAT isn't the end of the world. A lot of people do it and still end up getting into medical school. Generally, schools can't see all of your attempts, but if you do have improvement in your scores, say if you scored a 505 on the first time and a 520 on the second time, that's really, really impressive. You might have an interviewer who asks you, oh, what happened the first time? But generally, if you can say you change your study habits and they saw that improvement, that's very, very impressive to them. Use it as motivation for your next time studying around. See what you did wrong and see what you can improve on. But the biggest thing is don't dwell on it, because that doesn't get you anywhere. If you dwell on the past and focus all your negative energy, like, oh, I didn't pass, because undergrads do that too, a lot. Pre-meds are very neurotic and they love to just dwell on negative grades and freak out because they didn't get a good mark on the test or a quiz. Don't do that. Try to move on to the future and look ahead. Be optimistic.
Yeah, I think it's super true that it's not the end of the world. We have good days, we have bad days, we perform well sometimes, and sometimes we perform poorly. But it's really not the end of the world. And if you think you can improve, and you have the time, and you have the energy and the resources and a plan to do better, then just take it again. You can do it.
Yeah.
Hey guys, so if you like our video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We're also linking our Instagram and our Facebook page down below. So please send us a message or comment if you have any questions or there's anything else that you would like for us to talk about.